Looks like we should be live at any second now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. I am Adam Steele, and this is my home version of the studio at Hot Pole Studios. Usually it's a much bigger studio with a lot more going on, but as of this whole situation that's happening, I've managed to fit a large amount of what I have into this 1 meter cubed space in our office, including quite a lot of real amplification. So tonight's stream is going to be another kind of metal, proper like death metal extreme type mix. But what's going to happen is we're going to be adding guitars as we see fit, maybe a couple of synths here and there if they work. The whole deal is, as you can see in front of me, Reaper is completely blank. I have been sent a project by Kris, and I think I opened it for about 20 seconds to make sure it all worked. So I'm going to roll the intro, and then this one's going to be a long stream. There's going to be a lot to do. Okay, so, like I said, there is a lot going to be going on. Let's show you a little tour of the studio. So, I have a second camera hooked up, which is actually an iPhone, would you believe? And so, you can see the stream. I have a nice beer and some chocolate raisins, because, like I said, settle in, it's going to be a long stream. And over on my left, I have a keyboard so that I can add in anything that I need. I don't think I'm going to need the Arturia beat step today because it's drum focused, but it's got a lot of CC stuff if I want to do anything crazy. Under the desk, I've put in my Arturia Audio Fuse 8 Pre, and that is where a lot of the magic is happening. There's a Motu MIDI device, but that's just got a single input from the MIDI keyboard on the left, which is overkill. Now, we get onto the interesting stuff. Down here, we have a Boss DS1 and a ReAmp box and a Tube Screamer and a couple of other things, and an Marshall JCM800 Studio Edition. That is the 20 watt one, but it actually sounds huge. And then there's the 2 Notes Torpedo Captor, which is going to be taking the load for us. And then below that is a Mark 1 PV5150. Brutal. And hidden away down here, I've got a 2 Notes La Bass as well, so that when we get to the bass, I can stick that through. If I pull back, this is all in a tiny little space, literally next to my legs. This is the tiniest little... I mean, just to give you an idea of how small this space is, I'm touching the desk. I can also touch the wall behind me. So, it's huge not. And then, of course, I've got the Rode mic, which is going to be useful. So I'm going to put this camera down for a minute. But when we get to ReAmping guitars, which is part of the plan, I've got a second camera to show you exactly what's going on. So I'll turn that off for a minute so I've got my other hand free. And let's load up this project. So there we go. At first you're not going to hear anything. I have to put the Restream plugin on the master output. I can adjust the gain with my toe. I mean, that sounds like a joke, but with the 5150 I actually did that a few times. Just because it was really quite convenient. Now, here's the first thing. Kris has sent me his Reaper project, and it's complaining at me that I'm missing this long list of plugins. And that's fine, because a lot of these are plugins that I don't have or simply wouldn't use. So, let's see what we've got. Now, the master effects are off, so I need to turn them on, but I'm actually going to get rid of those effects, and I'm going to add in Restream. This is going to be quite an awkward stream at points because my keyboard is at full arm's length so that I've got a bit of space to breathe. And I'm going to add in restream, send as a local broadcast, and this should, if I hit play, come out the stream. It may be quite loud, so I'm going to turn the volume down on your side. Yeah. So that's something that I was doing, and shouldn't really have hit save on that. Oops. Let's go back to exactly as it was, so that you can hear exactly what it was. Cool. So there's a lot of stuff, and there's a little mention from Kris. Hello, Kris. I know you can't stay this evening. There we go. I'm just trying to readjust this without destroying the entire setup. There we go. And so, yeah, I'm quickly going to go through and just, if I hold down the Alt button, actually, I can get rid of most of these plugins that don't exist straight away. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of pretty much all of them anyway, because some of them, like Retune, was in there, like a guitar tuner, which I don't need because they've been tracked. Vocal groups going through an EQ, delays and distortions can all go. So the first thing that I'm going to do, get rid of the click track and then arrange things in the order that I would like them to be. So let's have a look at what we've got. There's 2 bass tracks with nothing on, so I'm going to get rid of them. There's the MIDI for the bass, which has been rendered, so I'm going to get rid of those as well. There's a guitar bus, which is a folder which works well for me. I'm going to get rid of sends. So that's the guitars. There's a room reverb which goes at the end, and vocal group which has all these in. Ooh, more plugins. Bye bye. Yeah, if I hold down the Alt button, I can just get rid of them all and hit save. So now this should be brutal. So the first thing I'm going to do before we even get into anything is I'm going to stick True Iron by Kazrog on the master bus before restream, turning the output down by -6 so that if I do push too much out to the master bus, it'll get caught and it'll kind of sound nice. It'll sound like transformer saturation rather than just out and out clipping. And we also don't go over the 0 on the master output, which is good for you guys. Right, so the drums are going to need some work, because right now they literally just come out to a single track, I think? Yeah, they've all been routed out to a single track. That's fine. And then what I might do is kind of cheat and open the project we worked on last week and pull in the drums from that and the drum sound from that. Because otherwise we're going to spend the entire stream talking about mixing drums one by one, which, although I can appreciate a lot of you might be interested in that, we've covered that very recently, and that's something that you can refer back to with our live mixing death metal stream from last week. So, yes, that's something I'm going to do. The bass, let's have a look at the bass. So there's this chorusing effect. So there's bass DI A and B. So A, bright and punchy. B, weird fart. B can go. Let's just be brutal and make that decision right now, because I could try and spend a while trying to do something with that B one, but there's a lot more harmonic content in the A one. So that's what I'm going to keep. Now, I have a feeling there's going to be a couple of timing issues in here, but the first thing we're going to do is get funky and look at reamping guitars. So right now, I'm going to turn on the JCM800 so that can get warmed up. And start to talk about how I've got this thing set up. Because right now, I've got everything set so that I can reamp guitars right here in this space with these really nice amps. So, let's bring up this camera again while that gets warmed up and talk about what's going on. So, I've wired everything so that if I play guitar, I can play, and I'm plugged into a DI box that's over here that goes into input 3 on this audio fuse. Now, output 3 on the audio fuse goes out to this reamp box. And then the reamp box goes through to any of these pedals that I plug in. Right now I've got a Tube Screamer plugged in. And then the Tube Screamer, which is using the power from this power brick here, which means that there's no mains, which means there's no mains hum, goes into the front of this JCM800, which I'll hold down here. So the 800 has got high and low sensitivity inputs. If you use the low sensitivity for the kind of sound we're going to go for in metal, it'll sound terrible. So from there, the master volume is literally on full because metal. That's how you get a good sound out of a JCM800, seriously. You push the power tubes. Unlike a lot of other more modern metal amps, like the 5150, which has lots of cascading gain stages, you really push it hard. So, from there, let's just put the bass, middle and treble at 0 and the presence at 0 as well. There we go. So you can see the bass, middle and treble are all at 0 now. And so the amp's on standby, but it's getting warm. So we've got, let's look back. I'm going to turn this camera off for a second. I'm trying to think about 4 things at once and I'm saying the wrong word. Bleh. So let's have a look at the guitars, because the guitars are just DIs right now. I'll just unsole the bass, so the guitars should sound like blink plonk, blink plonk. Right, so there is left, centre and right in terms of these main amps. Sounds like it's going to be cool. And then there's a swell guitar, which we will treat separately, because that's going to need a little bit of cleverness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of these. I'm going to mute the the centre and the right, and I'm just going to stick with the left one and pan it right in the middle. So what I'm going to do, firstly, is where the routing is on this left emissary. I'm guessing emissary was the original amp. I'm going to turn off the parent send, and I'm going to send this out of a hardware output, which I said it's plugged into 3. So line 3 is going to go out there, Unity. So we're now not going to hear it, but it'll go through to the amp, and the amp is still on standby, which is great. But if I un-standby the amp, put it on high output mode, because there's low and high output, that's now going to that torpedo captor that I showed you. And what I'll probably want to do is make a new folder. So, rhythm left. I'm going to call that rhythm left. I'm going to put it in there and call that guitar bus, because that's kind of how I like to work. Guitar left DI. So I'm going to have the DI for guitar left in that folder next to it. So there we go. So that's now on and coming out to the amp, and I know that's coming out to the amp because as soon as I hit that, you can't hear that, but the torpedo captor's fan starts to spin up. So that is plugged in on channel 4. So if I bring channel 4 in, there we go. This will sound terrible. But we've got signal. Now it sounds terrible because there's no cab on there. And yes, reamping with the captor, why not? Because then I've got the sound of the real amp. I mean, I've not got the real cab, but if I get this right in Wall of Sound, the realness of it is going to come through. So I'm going to start with the God's Brit, which is one of my favourite cabs of mine, which I've made. With the good old SM57 slightly off centre, and it sounds like this. So it sounds pretty brutal. One thing I like to do is add a second layer. So I'm going to use the Big Beast, which is my Zilla standard 412. And I actually do like using the, especially for heavy stuff, the D112 on here, which makes no sense, but when you mix it with a 57, we get this. Right, so that sounds okay. But it doesn't sound amazing. So that's where some tweaking's going to come in, because like I said, I took the controls back to all just 12 o'clock. And I've got a tube screamer, which isn't on right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn on the tube screamer, which is on 0 gain, all the volume, tone fairly high. Let's just see. Yeah, this app doesn't let me have the flash, which is a shame. Just see if I can get more brightness. It is pretty dark down there, but let's turn. He says, pressing that. Turn the tube screamer on. Yeah, now that's giving it some real bite, but it still sounds woolly, and that's where this is a major difference most of the time between a virtual version of an amp and a real version of an amp, is that the controls are described as interactive. They interact with each other. If I turn up the treble and the presence a little bit, it'll sound more bright, sure, but it still won't sound right. Listen to this. Where this really comes alive with the Marshall is if I turn down the mids, and I mean really turn down the mids to where you're looking at the knob going, this is wrong, but watch this as the mid goes down. Yes, and it's funny because the mids have gone down so low on that tone stack. That means that the master output is being hit very differently, which means that the power tubes are being hit very differently, which gives us a much more brutal metal tone. And that preamp volume's pretty high as well, so if I turn that off, we can hear there is some hissing. So the next thing, and this is where it gets really clever as well, is something that I worked out. I've been thinking this for a while, but this is how to make essentially a 14 Zool, but in software, using a real amp. So this is where I can use the DI signal, because I have the DI signal. And when I record real guitars, I'll be using the real DI signal. A 14 Zool is a great gate because it has a key. And the key is essentially the clean guitar that triggers the gate to open and close, but then is actually opening and closing the really heavy section. So what we want to do is add Reaper's re-gate, helps when you can reach the keys to spell, before wall of sound on this rhythm guitar. And here's the thing, I want to send from the DI through to this rhythm guitar, but I want to make some new channels, 3 and 4. And so now if I change the input on the gate to be auxiliary, there we go. Suddenly that's absolutely silent. And that's silent because the DI is silent, not because the amp is silent. And that's really, really clever, because that means if I hit play, that's a really, really clean gate. Like, at the end of this song, I did see when I looked at it earlier, if I turn the gate off for a second, this is the end of the song without the gate. Trying to gate that just using a traditional gate would be a nightmare, but using the actual clean DI, I get this. So if I just bring that up a bit, so I can give myself a bit of hold on that, bit of a shorter release, take the low end out of that detector. And that's really now a brutal gate. And that is going right from the start. So I could use the 5150 here, but I'm now set with JCM800 with a tube screamer. So let's hit record from the top. This is going to take a few minutes. If you've got something you need to do while this runs through, go for it, and I'll meet you back here in 2 minutes. There we go. There seemed to be some sort of kind of digital breakup there, but I think that was just on the computer side. Hopefully that didn't get recorded. I'm just going to knock record off and listen to that a second. Yeah, sounds fine. Sounds great. So to explain the routing for that, the DI, whether I was recording it live or doing it as a pre-record, which is exactly what this is, I sent a send out from one track to another from the DI, but what I did is in the routing, I changed the output to go to channels 3 and 4, basically making new tracks on my channel where the amp was coming in. And that way, I could change the gate, so the detector input was the auxiliary input, which is channels 3 and 4. So it's looking for detection like a key, which if you were to do this in Pro Tools, you would use the key input. In this way, you're not doing that, but it's very similar. Let's just check that my processor usage isn't crazy. It's not good. Right, so this is where things get a little interesting, because now there's a right-hand side channel as well. So what I'm going to do, I made myself a lot of new channels. I'm going to bring the right channel in. So that's guitar right DI. And I've got rhythm right here. So I'm just going to copy the gate and the wall of sound over. And this is where I'm going to turn off the send to line 3 on that DI for the guitar left, and I'm going to copy that over to my guitar right and make sure that's on this time, because I don't want to send multiple guitars out to the 800 at the same time. That's asking for trouble. I don't want that to come out the master output. I don't want to hear it, so I've just alt and clicked on where it says roots, a nice little shortcut. And I'm going to send again from the guitar right DI. Well, behave yourself. From the guitar right DI to new tracks 3 and 4. There we go. So that should, if I hit record on rhythm right, and make sure that that input is number 4, because that's the one that I've got the amp coming into. There we go. That sounds like a mush. Let's pan them left and right. Cool, but I want to be a little bit... There we go. So I want to change the tone a little bit. So I'm going to take the Tube Screamer out, and I'm going to do something a little crazy. So, move this camera down here. So this is my Tube Screamer clone. It's a Tube Screamer. Through and through, it just is. So I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to take record off on the amp for a second so we don't hear this awful as I take this out and just put it on the side. And I'm going to call on the ancient power of a DS1. Because believe it or not, you can get an amazing guitar tone with a DS1, just not on its own. And here's the thing, if I was to use a Boss DS1 into a clean amp, it would sound disgusting. But, rip headphone users. Yeah, there we go. So I've got my DS1 there now plugged in, and I've got everything almost at 12 o'clock. So if I turn record back on, there we go. So this is without. And on. There we go. So, without, it's nice. And with it's more cutting, it's more brutal, it's more everything. And actually we can see, if I take that gate off for a second, that the noise floor is ridiculous. Yeah, that's at like minus 16 dB noise floor. That's, without that gate trick, that would be unusable. But if I hit record on this, the left side is the one with the tube screamer, the right hand side is the one with, I'm just going to turn that camera off again, the right hand side is the one with the DS1, and listen to the brutality on this. Cool, so I'm just going back to the start, because what I did there quickly was I just played around with the settings on the 800, so I just gave it a little bit more mid, bit less bass, bit more treble, and I might just, yeah, give it a touch more presence as well, and just to balance it, and hit go. Yeah, the fan in the captor's going a little bit crazy while we do this. The other interesting thing is, if I use the DS1 on both sides, it would probably sound like an incoherent mush. But because the tube screamer's giving us all the definition on one side, the one on the right hand side is just backing it up with extra brutality. And of course, keep in mind this is all before any mixing, any EQ or anything. This is just raw guitar tones. And that's the end. Yes, brutal. Yeah, so there's a whole section there where the guitar on the left has a little feature, then the guitar on the right comes back in, and without those gates there, that would not work. that sounds absolutely brutals. Now, for the center guitar, so I'm going to quickly put the 800 on standby and then turn it off, because I think it's time for the 5150. I tried the 5150 on the rhythm guitar earlier and it sounded great, but there was just something about the 800 that I just wanted to get a brutal tone out of it. So I'm just plugging the there we go, plugging the tube screamer back in, and I'm going to move the output from the tube screamer from the JCM800 to the 5150. Now, I'm going to take these headphones off for a second. Come with me on a journey. A journey down the back of the sofa, so to speak, because now I have to do this thing where I take the cable out the back of the 800 and stick it in the back of the 5150. This is going to be fun. That's going to stay, but there we go. Ow. Okay. And I'm back. Oh, there we go. Truth be told, the other reason that I wanted to do the JCM800 first was because I figured I'd be doing the rest of the track with the 5150 and I did not want to have to do that more than once. It's not so bad when you're doing that and you're not being filmed and you're not live, because I can take a little bit more time and move things, but, you know, don't want to leave you all waiting for 10 minutes. So, I turn on the 5150 with my toe, just to get those tubes warmed up. And let's make ourselves a new track now. Let's mute those two rhythm tracks for a minute. And unmute this center one, which only happens every now and again. So let's send our gate out. Our rhythm center coming in from input 4 as well. Hello to Halcyon in chat. Thank you very much for great feedback. It's always good. It makes it all kind of worth it. So, don't want that going out of line 3. I do want that one going out of line 3. So let's take that out of the master and turn on the ReAmp. There we go. So that's the sound of the 5150 on the red channel. Gain's up at about 4, which, considering this amp has a lot of gain stages, more than the 800 does, that kind of tracks. It makes sense. And let's have a look. Yeah, so the bass is dead center, mid slightly scooped, but not like the 800 was. Treble's a little up, presence and resonance are up a little, and that sounds like this without the tube screamer. Turn the tube screamer over, and oh, there we go. So let's just let's turn the others on and just see if that works in the middle. That's going to work. There we go. Yeah, I've turned that camera off now that I realised it was still on. It was supposed to cover a large amount of the screen so you could see what was going on, but yeah. Whoa. Anyway, let's just change the mic setup on this 5150 a little bit. Right, this one doesn't seem to be as high output on a lot of the track. So I'm going to hold down shift and turn up a lot of these so that they really kick the amp in the front. There we go. So let's turn off the big beast for a second and listen to the God's Brit. So the God's Brit's going to get a 421. I will show you the settings of the 5150 in just a second. And the big beast. Not a fan of an SM57 usually myself. Let's mix that with the 421 and see what happens. Yeah, that might do it in amongst these. Yeah, so I'll run these in now. So the setting on the 5150, he grabs the camera one more time and remembers to turn it off hopefully this time, is, so we're on the red channel, so that's our setting. Bass is, like I said, on the middle, mid's a little low, high's a little high, and then we've got resonance just above the middle and the presence. Post gain is just above 2 because you don't need much more on a 5150, you just end up with a mushy output because it's a 6L6 based, and 6L6s don't really distort in the same way that EL34s and 84s do. It's not a pleasant sound, it's just kind of a muffly rumble. So, we get this. Might just up the tone on the tube screamer and up the gain on it a little bit, just to give us a bit more. Oh, hello, what was that there? Oh, I'm keeping that. Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to hit record and get all these parts in. Might want this gate to be less sensitive. It's a nice clean gate, the sidechain gate, but it might be just a little too high up at the moment. That's fine, these gates are going to take care of a lot of our issues. Yeah, lots of metal. I'm going to skip ahead. Gap 3, 4, metal. Brutal multi-picking. And then the end section. Right, and that's the end of that. So, we get a unison of... Cool, I'm probably going to do some sort of stereo effect with that center guitar to get it out of the middle of the stereo space. Which is where these heavy, heavy vocals are going to go. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, 1 second. Excuse me. Metal sneeze. So, there's one more guitar to do, and this one needs a little bit more treatment. This was the swell guitar. So this one is, if I just listen to this soloed, bing, bing. So this one is very Kris. Kris likes these big kind of auto swelled guitars. Excuse me. There we go. Because auto swell guitars are kind of his thing, but I don't have an auto swell pedal. What I do have is a copy of Line 6 Helix, native. Now here's where it gets interesting, because I very regularly blur the lines between analog and digital. So I'm going to take out the entire amp here, all of it, and literally just add in, I think it was dynamics? Yeah, auto swell. There we go. So now it should... So if I make it quite a long attack, and then make the overall output a bit louder. Why is that not closing the gate? Threshold louder. There we go. Yes, GOH Psycho. We're not gonna do any jokes about that in chat because that's quite a sensitive subject for a lot of the world right now. I happen to be the kind of person who sneezes a lot under bright lights. I just do. I always have done. I have very blue eyes, and it's just a curse. But anyway, getting back to this, let's make myself a new properly gated and properly wall of sound track with input 4 again. And let's see how we get on with this first of all. Helps when we use a send to open up that gate. and also send something to the amp. Okay. So that's working technically. But we need it to have a way longer attack. Probably gonna have to switch the 5150 out to the green channel and see how that goes. Crunch mode. Ooh. Nobody's used that green channel in a while. I think that's kind of the idea we're supposed to be going for, but then if we put something like Echo Boy afterwards with a fair mix and a ping pong that's quarters ping pong, let's try that. There we go. But if I turn the threshold down a bit, then that won't trigger properly. There we go, there's the whale noises. There we go, so between the auto swell, which goes before the gate, oh that's a point, the send for the gate needs to be pre-effects, it needs to be pre-swell. No, wrong one. That needs to be post-fader. The send that goes to the gate needs to be pre-effects. There we go. That's nailed it. Okay, let's reamp this and listen to our guitar bus as we go. Nice. Add another one. Brutal. So now we've got that middle guitar is going to need some real EQ work because it's just so full on. Let's just go back to you know what? I might go back. I might just reamp that one. So all I have to do is delete the audio out there and solo it. Hello? Why am I not hearing it? Jog. My gate's on. Because I've hit record on the wrong thing because I'm an idiot. I'm not on the red channel, that's for a start. But I do want to try this with the gain down a bit on the amp. Cool, so I'm going to take the gain all the way off on the Tube Screamer. I'm going to push the mids up a bit, push the bass down a bit, but correct for it with the resonance. Yeah. Now that's hitting the output a bit too hard, so I'm going to turn down the output from the torpedo capture a little so we don't get that clip. Oh wait, no, it's clipping on the output, that's fine. It's clipping on the DI apparently, it's just getting right up there. There we go. So yeah, one of the guys in chat just said pull out some bass to tighten it up. That is literally what I just did. I just took some low end out, but turned up the resonance in the amp, which is the power amp. There is no depth control on a 5150. There is a resonance control, which is a subtly different thing. To do with feedback loops and stuff like that. But it has the desired effect. There we go, let's just put it in context. Yeah, there's some timing I'm going to need to change the edits on, but... Like, I'm sure that entire section's in the wrong place. Yeah, if I reamp that in that place... Yeah, I do think this middle amp's going to be way lower down in terms of volume anyway. sounds to me like that end section's not right either, but... Turn off the send and the record. Yeah, so that's now in place. So let's try this. Okay, so I had a comment in chat that the sensor's a bit harsh still. Yes, it's meant to be. There is going to be a lot of mix moving here. I'm not necessarily one of those engineers who has to get the final tone whilst tracking. My approach is I can almost hear where I'm going with it, and I need certain frequencies to be in there for me to work with. I don't usually work with a center guitar at all. I don't like it. I don't like having central guitars because I find they mask a lot of frequencies that are needed for other instruments. But what I will do with this is I'll process it quite heavily, and those frequencies that appear harsh will help it to have some definition once it's spread out to the sides. So bear with me. It's not meant to sound like some sort of harmony chorus. But yeah, there's always a benefit to having unprocessed DIs, whether it's that clever gate trick or whether it's the... yeah, there we go. There we go. Or whether it's anything else like shoving it back through a real amp. That's always a good thing. So at this point, I'm going to turn off the 5150. Oh. And as I turn off the 5150, it makes my monitor jump a little. So, we're getting somewhere. Now to turn our attention to the bass, because the bass sounds very... bit too programmed, if you know what I mean. But this is where it's going to be an interesting one. This one probably doesn't need that gate trick, but I might need to do it anyway. I'm just going to have a look at power for the Le Bass. Okay. Ow. Right, so the Le Bass is turned on. So what I'm going to do, I've got a cable plugged into it. And I'm going to change the reamp out to go from the reamp out, same channel, straight to the front of the Le Bass. There we go. So let's see what happens if I send this out of channel 3. Burp, burp, burp. So this should be channel 6, I believe, because I think I went 5 for the DI from the bass and 6. Oh yeah, so that's clipping like a mother hubbard. Wow. So let's turn the master off on the DI for a minute and just listen to the lead bass, which should be... Oh, yes. So that's the... Let's bring up the camera whilst I run this, and I'm going to get some tones. So the A channel is the clean tone on this thing. I'm just going to give that camera a little clean. I can see reflections that I don't want. And the B channel is the grit. And then I'm going to put them both together. So let's see what happens. B channel. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. There we go. Apologies, I know it's not easy to see. It really helps when you turn the camera on, idiot. There we go. So I've run the A channel nice and clean. The B channel was the gritty one that you heard. And then it's gone blue because I've pressed both pedals. And that's fusion mode. Can't believe that's clipping. That's with a pad on. There's some serious level coming out right there. So I'm going to turn the output down on both channels. The high note run on the bass should be more in the pocket. It's a bit late for that, Marty. It is what it is. And it's an aggressive, heavily picked metal part, so it kind of will fit anyway, I think. Stay. Anyway, that would be, I think that's quite a good raw bass tone, so I'm going to record that in. And you'd be surprised. I mean, yes, it's a programmed bass and it's always going to sound like a programmed bass. But once that's EQ'd, that's... I mean, something that always surprised me about the first Meshuggah album is the raw tracks for the bass had so much high mid, like this. It sounds like it shouldn't work. Yeah, it is MIDI, yeah. Hello, Bommel. Let's bring in the guitars with it. Okay, so that's interesting. Certainly not the tightest sound I've ever heard, but it's a bass sound. And yeah, so the 2 notes La bass is a full valve driven bass preamp. So I've got one side doing the clean-ish sound and one side doing the distorted-ish sound. There is still a kind of a dingy dingy ding in the top end of it. But it does sound like we're getting close to thinking about mixing at this point. So we've got our vocals, we've got drums. That's what I did say I was going to bring in. I'm going to open myself a new project tab. I'm going to quickly open up, where were you? Serotonin, which has all the plugins, and it's going to take a minute. Whoa. Any questions on what we've done so far with bringing in heavy guitars? Oh, it's going to moan at me about things like, oh, you don't have a demo for Parallax anymore. Great. Of course, I said I really liked it and I was thinking about buying it, but I haven't yet, so that is what it is. Come on, guys, there it is. Come on. All I want is your tasty, tasty drums. Come on, I already said I didn't want you. Go away. It's probably going to try a third time. Isn't software brilliant? Just when you're in the middle of doing something, it's like, hey, remember me? I'm going to hold up everything. Just to be a pain. And it pops up underneath. Quit! Go away! That's now 3 times you've asked me this. Any more? Come on. That's 4 times now. All visible licenses expired. I know. That was 4 times. Oh. Has Archetype Nolly run out as well? Surprising how long we've been doing this whole lockdown thing. But yeah, I've got a couple of other pedals here which I've not ended up using. I've got a straight boost pedal, which I was using previously before I had the Arturia. The interface I was using was not giving me enough output to hit the reamp box really loud. Because it's a passive reamp box, so the amount of level you can get from it is entirely dependent on the amount of level you can send to it. But I was using a cheap boost. So, there we go. Oh, the deck. It's just the cheapest of the cheap. And it was a full range boost that's literally just supposed to make your signal louder, and it did, and it worked perfectly well. And I got it, and about a week and a half later, I ended up working with Arturia to make the audio fuse. It was just like, ugh. When I record the guitars, is the IR recorded all together? No, that's left on the track as a plugin, so I have the choice to go back and not not use that particular setup. The only thing that is recorded is what comes out of the torpedo captor, which is a raw version of what the power tubes are giving you. So it's the amp without the cab, which, go away, is an interesting proposition. And then the other pedal, which I've still not used, is this Landlord Effects Tap Room, which I believe is a pretty cool little delay, but I really like stereo delays, so I end up almost always adding them in post. Just because, you know, stereo is cool. If I'm going to do anything like that, let's just add on my triggers, my drum room. Actually, I'm just going to copy my entire effects setup wholesale from this song. I'll explain them as I go, but it'll save me tons of time in the long run, so that you're not waiting for me for hours. There. Okay, so effects, you all go at the end. Oh, hello, David Ross. Hello, the Council of Davids. About the ReAmp box, some say that specific boxes lose a bit of low end. What's my experience? My experience is that that is not really the case. I tend to find that that's the whole active versus passive thing in action. That if you have a particularly poor interface, then you'll find that it's not going to give you the highest quality, because it's the interface that drives a passive reamp box, whereas an active reamp box kind of, as long as it's given some signal, kind of does the rest. So let's see how this sounds. Jesus, I did okay getting that drum tone. Let's bring the bass way up. Is there lightning outside? Kind of hard to tell. But yeah, I'm going to send my bass track out to some reverb. Small room. Some pretty brutal drums, but that's Christian's drum writing for you. He does not care whether a drummer can or cannot do it. He's like, this is the part, do it. And yeah, it just makes for absolute insanity. And so let's get this bass fat and driven. just take a bit more of that dinger down after the compression and saturation. There it is, 3 something K. Cool, so the saturation that I did in there with the New York preamp really helped to sit some of those high bits and also make the low end fit a little better. I'm going to use True Dynamics just on here with the LA1B just to try and catch a bit more of that top end. So that's starting to sound incredibly brutal. I'm just going to mute those central guitars and just focus on the rhythm guitars for a second. There we go. So those guitars sound brutal, but as I often find with reamped or even just real guitars that sound really heavy in the room, they then need a little bit of sweetening in a mix to make them pop. And that's just, even if a guitar's really nice, something that I saw Nolly doing today. Nolly released a video where he talks about recording a slightly darker guitar sound because he finds it easier to lift the frequencies he wants out rather than having a certain nastiness, which I certainly agree with his philosophy there. There we go. So as you can probably see from that, I'm generally a boosting kind of guy if there's nothing wrong with a tone. So I boosted a little bit high end on that SSL there, took everything below about 90 Hz out the bottom, so because it was just flub. Then I did a little bit of a Neve lift on the top because it's a different frequency space to an SSL, which is much more harsh in kind of 8 to 9K upwards, whereas the Neve is much more gentle shelvings from 12K upwards, which gives you a much more of a clarity, where the SSL gives you a cut. So I've used a little bit of both, and then a little bit of that 1.6K on the Neve just brought them forward in the mix. So here's without all that, and here's with. Let's see if that fits together with the drums and bass. let's add in those swell guitars, which are in the same group, and see if they just... Right, so they need to come down quite a lot, and they need their own EQ on them, which I'm going to use the SSL because it's quite surgical. So I don't need anything super low in that swell guitar. Don't need anything low mid. Let's try that. I'm going to bring the bass and the guitars down a bit, and then I'm going to bring some low end out of that kick because it's just too much. There we go. So I've actually brought that up from my usual kind of 40 hertz cut there to about 60, 64. And that is a bit more beach bally, but because of the speed of the kick, it's kind of necessary. Suddenly this will be much clearer. It's time to add in our bright little friend here. And I'm going to start with the Howard Benson plugin, which the Howard Benson Vocals plugin, and yes, I know this isn't a vocal, but if I use the multiplier and the width, these should very quickly give us that 3D-ness. So I'm going to turn on the other guitars and see if we can fit it in just by the volume. And interestingly, that guitar, which someone said was too bright, I've not changed any EQ on this guitar, and suddenly it's not quite cutting enough. So this is where I turn on the EQ and push it. Because that should, in theory, be all the more brutal. It's that in the bass that's making everything sound messy. There's a definite sandiness in there. That's the best way I would describe it. Okay, we're getting somewhere. This is brutal. This is heavy. Yeah, so those... That's a really epic China, but I think I'm probably going to use a different one. What have we got? Let's try that. There we go. That kind of clears the way, that particular China. It doesn't hit too much of that thing. There we go. Yeah. Because it's a slightly smaller China cymbal, it's got a much quicker decay, which means because he's going, it doesn't just go and just sound like a sample of white noise for 4 seconds. I've got a 22-inch China in my studio and I love it, but I wouldn't play that kind of beat on it. It's not necessarily at that velocity anyway. So where's... Yeah, let's just take them down. Let's just see if... Yeah, there we go. So if I just take these velocities down a little and then just use the H for humanize, that might just be the magic bullet for that. Oh yeah, that's more like it. And also those snares are all a bit robotic, so I'm going to take them down because nobody can hit a snare like that, not even good drumming humans. H for humanize on your MIDI will do wonders. Suddenly that sounds great, and with the kick drums as well, if I take them down a little and then just H for humanize, especially on these double kick parts. Watch this now. So if I just undo all that, this is how the kick did sound. And if I give you what I ended up with, actually having the kicks hit slightly less hard, but having some variation, sounds much more realistic. How about that? Yes, Lars Ulrich. Major Prometheus, have I given it large for my sponsor yet? What sponsor would that be? I mean, you'll be quite glad to know that the channel doesn't have particularly heavy sponsorship at the moment. I mean, cheers. Can I humanize the bass as well? No, because firstly, I got rid of the MIDI for the bass. Secondly, I don't have a suitable MIDI bass plugin. So that is what it is. But you could, in theory, do that. If you have MIDI bass for a VST, you could humanize it to make it sound more usable. You know what? I've just made a decision. That center guitar, gone. Not having it. Kris did say I had full creative reign over this track. So, hello, David. Welcome to our brutal. Now to bring in some vocals. Oh, DistroKid. Yes, that's right. I do use DistroKid quite a lot. If anyone's got music they want to release, DistroKid is a good place to do it. We are not actively sponsored by DistroKid, but yes. Oh, there was no variation on velocity on that bass. Okay. But yes, without the Spotify option? Nah, I like Spotify, so yeah, sorry. But yeah, if you want to choose different options on DistroKid, you can. We have a link in the description of every show that we do. If you click that, if you want to use DistroKid, we get a bit of a kickback and you get 7% off signing up for, I think it's $20 a year. And in that cost, you get to just release albums. You don't pay extra for it. So yeah, check them out. So here we have many vocals. Okay, so it sounds like Lewis is just waking up. Let's take the let's take these plugins. I'm just gonna copy these straight from the serotonin and right click here and go paste effects. One of the best things about tabs. Cool. Yeah, I'm just going to copy these over backing radio. That's going to go further down. What's the shortcut to change track names quickly without having to double click each one? Tab. If I'm naming something and then I just hit tab, I can then go between them all. And then I can undo them because there we go. But yeah, that's how you do it. You just double click on one, and if you're naming the next one, the next one, the next one, you just hit tab on the keyboard or shift and tab to go back one if you made some kind of mistake. That's been the same in most DAWs for many years, as it has in most aspects of both Windows and Mac OS X. If you need to get to the next thing on your keyboard and you don't want to have to find clicks everywhere, tab over. Yes, no problem. So, let's have a look at really stereoizing this backing vocal. Lots of... Awesome. Let's have this quick delay and send that there. and a proper delay verb. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to bring Lee's vocals in as well. Really distort them. That's pretty brutal. I don't think that needs the EQ work afterwards that the others do. That's brilliant. That sounds brutal, so I'm just going to push the volume up on the vocal there. That's brutal. That's the Christian pig squeal, if I remember rightly. I'm going to make sure that's got loads of delay and stuff on it. So it's backing radio. So the name gives the game away that this should be. I'm gonna add in the Howard Benson more size, more echo. But also hit the lo-fi button and grit. How do they do that without destroying their vocal cords? They don't. That's the secret. No, there are ways of doing that, but you'll have to ask. There are specific teachers, like Mary Zimmer is a really good teacher for extreme vocals. There are some really good teachers out there for extreme vocals. Just let me have a quick look on YouTube for extreme vocal and see if I can how to record now. Extreme. There are some really good teachers, and I'm trying to think. There are some that I've actually looked at some of their tutorials and found some really interesting and useful things. My voice doesn't seem to want to do extreme vocals, because when it does, I pay for it very quickly. My voice is much more suited to the kind of big operatic thing. So that's what I end up doing personally. But back to the topic at hand. Let's see how this fits in the mix. Cool, so I think we have the basis of a track there. Melissa Cross, thank you very much, Kris. Oh, God. That's the one. Melissa Cross is the one. Zen and the Art of Screaming is a DVD that she did, which was a very big influence on a lot of people. I just couldn't find the name in my brain then. But yes, Melissa Cross, Zen and the Art of Screaming. If you're interested, genuinely interested, check that out, and that will put you a lot further ahead than just trying to do it. And playthrough, not yet. We are not done. This is where I come in. So this is where I start getting interesting, because now I essentially have free reign to add bits in, and now I can switch a few things over. Where's the audio fuse app gone? Audio fuse control sensors. So if I switch over, I've been using 3 and 4 from Reaper to drive the there we go. The outputs from Reaper to drive the 5150. I've switched that over so that input 3 now goes to output 3. And I'm connected via my telly, which is tuned to drop B, to something else entirely. So I'm going to make an extra group. You can probably not see that. Let's just make sure. There we go. You can see that. And add some more channels in this extra group, which I'm going to call Adam DI1. And Adam 5150. Left, I'm going to assume. So I want one to be Michael 3. that's going to need tuning, but that's fine. I don't want that to come out the master out. And I don't want this to be reamping either, because Arturio's audio fuse is doing it for me. But what I do want is for this not to be doubling up on my vocals. Where are my guitars now? So I'm going to do that, copy that over, send that there. So this is literally doubling up the same as... There we go. I'm just turning the bass up a little bit on the amp with my foot, turning the mids down a bit. Now, I'd like to think I'm much more of a clean guitarist. Well, probably not when there's this much gain involved. Turn the gain up on the amp a little. Just going to adjust the what do you call it, the buffer. Hopefully this doesn't just stop everything working for you guys. Ooh. Oh dear. There we go. There we go. So let's just move this camera over a little. Whoopee! Not having that USB camera go flying, which it nearly did. Let's not. I wanted it to point down without leaning over an edge. There we go. So if I turn this camera back on, get much smaller. Yeah, so the 5150 is set pretty much as it was set before. Come on, straighten up, damn it. There we go. So it is a little bit more gain, a little bit more bass. I'm using EMGs in this telly. And let's just see what happens if I put this. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, live. This is what happens when you try and do things live, is you do them badly. There we go. And this is why there are entire teams dedicated to live video production. You think, oh, you only need one cameraman. Yeah, but behind the scenes, there we go. The camera's not wide enough angle. I was trying to show you. Ask Sarah Longfield about foot fetish. I don't know if that's your thing. I mean, Sarah Longfield seems pretty cool. I saw her at NAMM. I didn't get a chance to say hello, but she seemed pretty cool. Probably best stop that before I get copyright flagged. Diggity-ding indeed. Let's check my tuning with ReTune, which is a really, really good tuner. If you set your window size right, you can do it on your screen, so you don't actually need to keep a Boss tuner with you. Apparently I'm in B flat. Anyway, here's my clean tone. So I'm actually tuned in B flat. I didn't realise I was tuned so low. But this was all set up for me by the wonderful people at Jack's Instrument Services in Manchester. What wonderful people they are. And from now I need to hide my mixer so I can see some tracks. There they are. And I need to come up with something because I've not actually written anything because I didn't hear the track until today. So let's have a listen. Nah. I mean, it sounds good. Oh, how am I doing this with multiple cameras? I'm using OBS. OBS Studio is my streaming software of choice. My number one camera is a Logitech C920 webcam, and my second camera right now, believe it or not, is an iPhone. It's an iPhone 7 with a specific OBS plugin and app that go together. So yes, and then Reaper is being captured by OBS. It's all on the same laptop. It's a modern machine that's an absolute beast, which is what I need to be able to do all of this off one machine live. Right, I need to decide what to write because there's a section here where I could fit quite nicely. This song's really busy and doesn't really need much in the way of guitar, I don't think. almost feels like anything that I play would be too conventional, because I am a relatively conventional guitarist. I find it quite difficult to do anything other than just, unless it's the typical Meshuggah. Which is just two, if I just take the gain down, just two chromatic notes next to each other. Just hit really hard. You know what? After setting the amp up, I don't think this song really needs anything. And I'm not saying that to be, you know, oh, chicken, can't write anything or anything. I genuinely can't find many spaces in this song. There are 2 spaces at the start, which I could put something in. I mean, I could try a couple of tappy taps over that. Excuse me. Sneezing town today. Oh. That's how low my DI is, because I'm not absolutely smacking it. I think I've got an idea there. Let's see how that goes if I was to double track it. Yeah, so the old center guitar just played harmonies and then spider picking and they kill the other section. See, I'm not sure if it needs that at all. If there's any realization that I came to with a lot of the older mixes that I did, where I used to be like quad tracking guitars and stuff, I'd come back to them and delete 2 of the guitars. Just find the best 2 performances out of the 4, and suddenly everything just sounded so much more brutal. It's the old less is more thing. If each tone is taking up the entire frequency spectrum, you don't need to quadruple up on it. So let's see how this goes now, and see if this fits. Just play that back. You can see how there's loads of noise on the amp channel, but because the way that we've done this super clean keyed gate thing, it's not a problem. that's just a nice single note thing that could go under here. Let's try that. I'm going to go from... I'm not going to add it in until after the scream. One more time for a clean track. Yeah, chug, 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 chug. And on the left side as well. Brutals. Let's just check they matched by soloing the whole thing. I love those clean gates. Awesome. They need some low end taking out. I'm going to turn that camera off again. Bane of my life, that little very warm iPhone at this point. And these tracks sound quite nice now, but there's way too much low end. And then that should take care of that as well. One more thing that I've thought that I might add in. Fireworks, or is it lightning? I genuinely can't tell. Keep seeing flashes from out. Oh yeah, that's thunder and lightning, alright. There's a storm outside, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to put the camera over here, and I'm going to make sure that I plug in a keyboard. A keyboard! Oh, keyboard is already plugged in. What's not plugged in? Oh, the actual MIDI device, right? Because what I was thinking was adding a sort of an actual MIDI bass, but a played synth MIDI bass under certain sections. Let's see if that works. It may not work. So I'm going to add a new track. If I can get it to sit in a different sonic space to that ding-ding-ding-ding-ding thing. Yeah, it's been really warm today, so it's kind of like tropical storms. It's a bit weird. Right, so I'm going to bring up Analog Lab by Arturia, because Analog Lab is brilliant. And I've got, if I can turn on the camera there and aim that forward a little, a piano. So, Analog Lab, this is what it does. Don't show me this, I know. Cheers. So if I turn on record from MIDI Microlight, cool. So I've literally just started there. So I've got click synths, types bass, and then it'll give me a load of options. Ooh. Wow. Would it be better to pan the center guitar? Well, the center guitar's gone. There is no center guitar. The center guitar got left behind, if you remember rightly. There is no center guitar. This is the guitar bus now. There's that swell guitar, but that's got such a heavy pan. That's, yeah. And that certainly wouldn't adjust what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of adding to low frequencies, especially in these sections where it goes. Those sections. Let's try that. Some real low bass. Okay, so I think that's gonna work. It's too much right now, but that's fine. That's easy enough to refine and take. The world police shooting down the corona. Jesus. What do you think is the biggest difference between mixing headphones versus speakers? With speakers, things do feel a bit more natural. With really good reference speakers in a really good room, it should be easier to pick out faults, flaws, and generally, monitor setups in a good room are more accurate than headphones. But then, if you're really used to working on good headphones, you have something like SonarWorks to correct their sonic flaws, and you just know your setup really, really, really well, which I've been doing this a long time. The convenience is the big plus. So a lot of people will tell you one is good and never to do the other. I don't subscribe to that, as you can probably tell. But I like checking my mixes on... Oh, I am going to play more, so I'm not turning off camera 2 just yet. But thank you, Marty. Am I supposed to be playing F sharp there, or is it supposed to be F? It is supposed to be F. That's Aftertouch that's making it change pitch. Aftertouch is weird, I hate it. But yes, if you are more comfortable on speakers than on headphones, that's cool. And I do prefer working with good monitors. I would much rather work with good headphones than bad monitors. But I slightly prefer good monitors to good headphones, but I can't have good monitors in a good monitoring situation in here, and especially not with a family in the house where I've got my partner and my child probably both asleep by this point. My voice is just about the right level that on the other side of the house I'm not loud enough to keep anybody awake, but any more volume than that would not be tolerated. Whereas at the studio, I've got my lovely Adam A7X and Sub 8 2.2 big system. So that is something, and I also have the NS10s. They're all great for monitoring on. And yeah, the only reason that I tend to find that I get better mixes on headphones is not because of the headphones. It's because I have space, I have clarity of mind, I have the freedom to work in my own time, if you know what I mean. Whereas when I've got a band sat in the room with me, I tend to find that I get a better mix separately because the pressure isn't there as much. Where I've not got 5 people going, I want more of this, I want less of that, when in the back of my mind I'm going, yes, I know, I'll get to it. Which you can see my method of working here, where I'll spend a while on one instrument, then I'll move on, then I'll spend a while on another instrument, then I'll move on. When you've got people in the room with you that are like, I want this, I want that, that gets difficult. But yeah, anyway, let's try and track this, or at least track some part of it. Yeah, I'm going to leave that without the lower bass bit so that then it really hits you when it comes back. So that becomes I literally want this to be as simple as possible here, so it'll just go. So I need to do this pattern properly. Although I don't need to go. I literally just need this to be, because it's going to be quite low down. Take up. Kind of reminds me of some of the most brutal death clock stuff. And I mean brutal, totally brutals. Yeah, it's totally brutals. Do miss Death Clock and Metalocalypse, because that was a great series. Especially if you didn't take it seriously, it was brilliant. It's totals douchebags. There we go. So. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, because it does. Yeah, it adds body. That's a good way of describing it. Because I do find that a lot of modern metal bass tracks, unless they're on like Dingwalls with these 37-inch scales, with the added in processed low end, it can you can get some real grit out of them, but you do quite often lose a bit of that low end detail. And so, yeah, just adding that back in with something that's quote unquote not real. Brutal as metals. Okay, I think it is time for a playthrough because at this point I'm going to call it for the night because I'm absolutely sweating, and I think we've done what we wanted to do, which was reamped with the JCM800 and got some brutal tones, reamped with the 5150 and got some more brutal tones, found that we actually didn't need any more guitars, but we did want some extra synth stuff of all things in brutal metals. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting evening. And yeah, this, as you saw me sorting the track out earlier, I hadn't seen this song before today, so I think it's turned out okay. So here's this song. I don't even know what it's called because it's called Dittlebow on the track name. But yeah, can't find a balance of distortion with good low end. The best advice I can give you is split your tracks so you've got your low end and your high end separately. Make sure you have fresh strings. Fresh strings give you more low end, believe it or not. Any good distortion pedal for this? Dark Glass B7K. Every time a Dark Glass B7K, if you really drive it and don't be afraid of the high end, it will give you a lot of this if you have very fresh strings and you're a clean pick player. The two of those together will really give you that brutal zone. So anyway, here's this song with no name.
This
And so I think that concludes our stream for this evening. It's been some epic reamping with the Marshall and 5150 and the La Bass, but it's all making me very warm, so it's all I think we are done for the evening. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If I find some time tomorrow, I might do a very quick cheeky midday UK time stream. I pulled out the old files for the 7-string bass performance of Africa by Toto that I did a while back, and nobody watched. So I listened back to it and wasn't happy with the mix on that, which is layers upon layers upon layers of a 7-string bass that I have, doing like the kick drum and the bass line and the guitar lines and all sorts, even the vocal lines. So I'm going to see about doing that. That's probably going to have to be in the middle of the day because of family commitments and stuff, so I don't expect many people to tune in live for that one. But yeah, that'll be an interesting, probably quite short one. And then I'll think about re-releasing that video. The Extinct Audio Black Ops microphone review video is finally ready, so that'll be going out to patrons now as soon as we finish the stream. And yeah, I'm so close to editing loads of different videos. It's just finding the time to do everything. So I'll be bringing that to our patrons now. And to everybody else, probably Sunday when I've done the thumbnail and the description and everything. Well, thank you to you guys for watching the Africa video. That is appreciated. But yeah, like I say, in hindsight, the mix wasn't right. I listened to it on a system with a sub and it nearly knocked me off my chair. But not in a good way. Little things like that now that I've had good monitoring and I know what to listen to, what to listen for, that's going to be a subtly different mix, and I can talk you all through how I did that. Is there any way to use Reaper through a cloud, i.e. edit on another PC? Technically, yes. Things like ACO can make that very difficult. You could do. You might have to use something like Voice Meter Banana as the sound device if you're using a cloud thing to try and get the sound to come through the cloud. And I really don't think that the sound quality coming through that cloud transmission would be good enough to mix with. But technically it'd be possible. You'd have to look into, yeah. I would use something like Voice Meter Banana as kind of the middleman there to get the sound out of Reaper as ACO and convert it into Windows sound. But that's definitely a topic for another day because that's quite a detailed thing if that's... Yeah. But yeah, doable. Yeah. But yes, that is where I'm going to have to leave it for the evening. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you either tomorrow or on another stream. The podcast is on Thursday, 8 PM UK time, if I don't see you before then. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out our other videos, as you can find here, or check out our Facebook and Twitter, or our Patreon page, which helps us to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.